We don't hit home runs on this pod. We work station to station. I'm back with my battery mate, as always, Dustin, and we are talking about the first Blue Jay series of the season, Dustin.
Finally, it's back. Spring is here. The boys are actually playing meaningful baseball. Hey, it's great. It's a great time.
So let's go into the rundown. The Jays end up splitting this series. They win the first and the fourth game, lose the second and the third. Game number one was a promising 8-2 win. Game number two, an 8-2 loss. Game number three, a 5-1 loss. And today's result was a 9-2 win. I think we have lots of actual talking points. Almost more than I like, it's good for, podcasts, right? But like part of me thinks that like if, if they won this series and there wasn't much to talk about and everyone looks good, then, that's probably a good thing for the team. But I think we do have a lot to talk about. And let's kind of work through here. Game number one, a lot of promising signs. Vladdy with a monster home run.
Yeah, an absolute bomb. 450 feet, at least according to what they're telling us. I'm not sure I trust the Trop's StatCast abilities, to be honest, because that ball looked like it was annihilated much farther than 450 feet. But it's good to see Vlad hitting them that far. I know that it's been going around that that's his furthest home run since April 2022. So quite a while since he's hit one that far. Great to see him put a charge in one, and hopefully that's one of many to come.
George Springer, really good start as well. He hits a kind of rope down the left field line, so he gets his first home run of the season. And I actually took notice of the fact that the Jays started a bit slow, took a little bit to get going, but their first three hits were homers from Springer, Vladdy, and Kevin Biggio.
Yeah, I mean, and that was exciting at the time listening to it. I think I was on the radio driving home and just, boom, 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 pumping my fist and wearing my voice out with celebration, because it's finally meaningful and finally something you can celebrate more than a spring training home run. Great to see the big dogs putting them over the fence. Man, I can't remember a game in 2023 where we had that many home runs in a game. I can't remember the last time it was just that impressive of a offensive outburst.
I think that really gave us some really good feeling, about the team because of that reason to start off. And speaking of big dogs, Dustin, did you see Kevin Biggio's OPS for this game?
I did not.
This must be one of the highest OPSs ever because it's 2750.
Oh wow.
2750 is OPS.
Yeah, he walked twice and got what, 2 hits, something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, he had 2 runs, 1 hit being the home run, an RBI, 2 walks. So yeah, 2750. I was going through things and I noted that. I was like, wow, that just jumped off the page. Jose Barrios, strong start, something that we all hope for. 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks. Pretty much what we were looking for to start the season.
Yeah, he looked great out there. He was, struggling a little bit for Barrios, but whenever he's on the mound, he's going to keep the game in reach. The first batter launched a home run. You start feeling like, oh, does he have it? But he locked it down, kept him in, and then it wasn't until the sixth that they outburst. But it was a little bit of a pitcher's duel before that.
Well, and that first batter was Yandy Diaz, only the AL batting champion from last year. So I think he had a pretty good series in his own right. But I wasn't too worried. Like he seemed to not miss a beat from last year.
No, he deserved the opening day start, and much better than his 2022 opening day start. That's for sure.
All right, moving on to game number two. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about here on the Jays side of things, at least positively. We saw I think we got our first Daniel Vogelback appearance. The bats were pretty silent, but I think the one item in terms of offense, and that's really what we're all looking at this season. Vladdy had another good day at the plate. He had another 2 hits and a walk. So he continued his strong start to the season.
He's looking sharp for sure to start the season. Especially the walks is the impressive part to me, that he's not trying too hard. That's what that's telling me. Is he's just taking what they're giving him. If they're not going to throw to him, fine. Then he can let it go and get on base and pass the baton, as they say. I think there's a little bit, and we'll maybe talk about it once we get to today's game, but a little more. I think he's benefiting from some of the Justin Turner and just the success of the guys behind him. Having Guerrero hit second, having Bichette, Turner, Varsho, at least in the game we're talking about, hit behind him is just a little bit of protection for him that allows him to do that, to take those pitches and to wait for those good pitches. Like we talked about our infield preview. I talked about Guerrero needing to shrinking his zone so that he's just focusing on an area of the strike zone. He's got such good plate discipline. Obviously, with 2 strikes, he's going to want to foul balls off and try and protect. But when it's a hitter's count and when you need to do damage, just wait for that ball in the small zone. And I think it seems like that's what he's doing, because I think I saw one of those StatCast things of like the strike zone for Vladdy over the series, and it's just he's really clustered his swing choices and the balls he's choosing to attack to a very narrow band within sort of the middle low and a little bit inside. So good to see him making those decisions. Hopefully he can keep it up.
Tampa definitely pitched well in this game, but they seem to get a bit of help from the home plate ump, and both Springer and Turner really deserved to take a base and walk, but they ended up being rung up on basically 2 pitches that were, I don't know, I'm thinking about 3 inches off the plate. Like it looked like a 1990s Atlanta Braves strike zone.
It wouldn't be so bad if it was like consistent, and maybe it was. I didn't pay attention to the entire game from that perspective, but definitely really those 2 at bats specifically just felt like, you're right, they should have been 2 runners on, a lot more pressure on the pitcher to throw strikes to the next guy. And whenever the ump sort of gives you that much off the plate, it's really hard to be selective. It's hard to be that kind of hitter that only swings at those certain pitches, because you're afraid like he's going to call those pitches that are obviously balls. If he was doing it consistently, which I feel like, I haven't checked the ump's scorecard yet on this one, but I think he may have been a little bit consistent, then it's not as bad, but it's still, you want to see the strike zone be a little bit more, let's say, fair than that.
Well, Bo Bichette was, I guess he's the subject of some Twitter furor over his, I guess, defensive start to the season, especially game 2. Maybe give me your thoughts on his defensive play. And there were a couple plays in particular that he was charged with an error, and they were errors, but it seems a bit hard on him early in the season.
So the first one, I think, was deserving of a little bit of a, oh, what are you doing? He was charging a ball, it seemed, and the ball was bouncing, and he was trying to catch it almost right at the ground. And he just didn't dig his glove deep enough into the dirt to scoop it, and it slipped under him. So that one's on Bo. But the second one, I think he made a pretty strong throw. I haven't seen him throw that strong in a while. It looked like a pretty quick throw. He was maybe rushing it. He bounced it, but when it got to Vladdy, it was like within catchable range. Yeah, it's hard to catch a bounce, but I think someone like Vladdy's got to corral that one. So it's a little tough to put that one on Bichette. I guess the judges made the decision to give him the error on the throw. But man, I don't know. Vladdy's got to catch that one. As for the Twitter discourse, it's like, man, Bichette has really improved his defensive acumen over the last few years. Last year was pretty decent, like an acceptable defensive season for him. I mean, it's not going to win a Gold Glove, but I mean, I'll take that given what he can do on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know what everybody's complaining about. I'm sure Bo's the harshest critic out of everyone anyways. So he'll work on that, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of that this year. I think that was just maybe a one-off thing, which has a little bit more amplification because it's early in the season, and it was a loss, pretty bad one.
Well, I have his error numbers from the past, I guess, 3 years. So he had 24 errors in 2021, 23 errors in 2022, 2023, 8 errors. So he had a third of the errors of the prior year. I would say that is a significant improvement. In terms of the two plays that we were talking about, it was kind of like it was kind of a short hop, and I kind of feel bad for him because the ball was like in his glove and it just kind of squeaks out. And then, at that point, he needs to decide what to do with it. The correct decision at that point is to pick it up and throw it to first, get an out. But he still felt that he could get an out at second, and of course that chain reaction basically causes the Jays to get no outs. The bases, I don't know if the bases are loaded at the point. I don't think they are, but a couple batters later, basically there's a grand slam, and it probably should have been a two home run. I guess a 2-run home run instead of a grand slam, but I guess that happens. You move on. In terms of the throw, I totally agree. It is, if you're gonna give an error to someone, it has to be Bo because he's the one that makes the throw. But yeah, Vladdy's got to do better. And we're not talking. You talked about the ball bouncing. It wasn't a short hop. Like it was a long, like that was a. It hit the ground and it was a long bounce, right? And I think if we're talking about somebody who has won a Gold Glove in the past, I think he's got to pick that.
Yeah, the ball was at his chest when he was going to catch it. Like not at his chest, but chest high. It wasn't like a short hop or anything. I don't know. A Gold Glove first baseman's gotta close the mid on that one.
And sometimes you have to bail, your infield out, right? Like that's what you're there for. I thought it was a bit harsh on Bo. I don't think either play really, I don't think was really either great on his part, but definitely nothing egregious from what we've seen a couple years ago where there was errant throws or just terrible decisions or things like that. I do think he's improved significantly, and I'm not terribly worried about this. Moving on to Game Three, the Jays, as I mentioned earlier, lose this one 5-1. Another meek offensive output. I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is Kikuchi had a not great start. I don't know if it was a terrible start, but it wasn't great. Dustin, where are you at with the pitching on this team? And give me some thoughts how they performed in this series.
I mean, I think in general the pitching's pretty good. Pretty much they're able to keep the guys in the game and allow the offense to do what we know they need to do, which is score a lot more runs than they have. I mean, the pitching last year was one of the best, if not the best, 1 to 5 rotation in the majors. It's pretty much the same rotation except for one guy, and I wouldn't expect anything of the same exact level because I think last year was a pretty high bar to set. There may be a little bit of regression here for some guys, especially someone like Kikuchi, but I expect them to put some good, strong innings in together, limit the runs, 1 or 2 or 3 runs within the first 7 innings, and hope that the bats can do their job. As far as Kikuchi here, I think he was struggling a little bit with location, but he did a pretty good job to sort of hold it down. He got out of trouble a couple times. I think the bats just didn't score. They got outpitched by Littell.
Well, and sometimes your bats got to pick up your pitching, right? And we often saw last year where pitching was good and the bats didn't really always show up. And sometimes that would lead to just losses that were a little bit disappointing. We did have our first incident of bench clearing, and it was in the bottom of the seventh inning. And we actually have a suspension, which has been subsequently appealed. Yenesis Cabrera gets into it with a Tampa Bay Rays player attempting to round third. Dustin, can you maybe give us a little detail on what happened and your thoughts?
As the play developed, Turner ended up not on third base. I don't remember exactly how that happened, but Turner ends up down the line and Bo Bichette's covering the base. Throw comes in and Bo catches and tags Caballero, and he kind of comes off the base and sort of jostles against Cabrera at the time. And it seemed like it was just kind of like one of those two dogs, met their eyes. They made eye contact for a little bit too long, two alpha bros, and I think it was a little bit silly from Cabrera. That was probably an uncalled for reaction to like push him in the face like that. I don't know if a 3-game suspension is warranted, but yeah, it's probably something you don't want to do.
Well, at first when I saw it, and I admit I did not see this live, so I had to go back and watch it. And I think I came into the room, and like the benches had cleared, and I was like, ooh, what happened here? This seems interesting. But Genesis Cabrera is backing up the throw at third base, and through the course of that, he kind of gets like a little closer to third base. So as the Rays player is rounding, they do kind of come together. Like not there wasn't any malice there, and it wasn't violence at all. But they kind of meet each other, and that's where that kind of exchange you mentioned comes about. I kind of thought the Rays player was reacting a little like I thought it was a bit of an overreaction. Like this is baseball. People are gonna come together at times. And does that, defend Cabrera's actions at all? Not one bit. If you put your hands on a player, I'd imagine 3 games is probably seems likely. Yeah, it's because Cabrera got into a staring competition and I guess he didn't want to lose.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think one way we can go with this is the fallout from it that might happen with this suspension ends up going through is with Ernie Clement and Jordan Romano out on the injured list, the bullpen is already expected to be pretty thin. Um, Not to mention Kevin Gosman going today, not able to get the full length on his outings that we would have normally had, and luckily they were able to use some pretty effective relief here today to get through the game. But it's just losing another guy, especially somebody like Genesis Cabrera, who's going to be pretty high leverage when it comes to most guys coming out of that pen. It's a tough loss. Another thing I saw on Twitter this afternoon is Bo Bichette was kind of involved in the back there as Cabrera pushes Caballero. He sort of runs into Bo Bichette, and Bo kind of looks like he's a little bit surprised. He kind of takes it and grabs Caballero and holds him back. Today's game, Bo Bichette was out with neck spasms, right? Is there anything to be said for that little moment where Bo kind of gets surprised and kind of jerks his head that caused something? He tweaked his neck. Who knows?
That's a really good spot, Dustin. When a player gets scratched due to any sort of spasms, I find to be very puzzling, especially when they're in their mid 20s. It very well could have been as a result of that. I don't know. I didn't really see anything to kind of explain it. I think we're gonna get an idea of how serious this is tomorrow when the lineup comes out and if Bo Bichette's in it. Is he playing? Is he back at shortstop? Is he a DH? What's happening? If he's scratched again tomorrow, then something's definitely going on, and there was got to be something, and maybe it is the play that you touched on just there.
For whatever it is, for Bo Bichette to ask to sit and to take the day off, that's gonna be something that's hurting him for sure.
All right, moving on to the final game of the series, which was played earlier today. The Jays go on to win it 9-2. And I thought, Dustin, there was after those two, offensively disappointing games, this was really kind of, I don't know, it felt good to kind of, leave the house of horrors that is Tropicana Field with a win. There is a bit of and we'll see this week how it is, but it seems like with the Jays, it's either feast or famine. So far this year, of course, it's only 4 games in, but the offense really showed up in this game.
When this lineup came out this afternoon, or I guess late morning, especially after Bo Bichette was scratched, there was a lot of cringing from some of the denizens of Twitter that, this is not a great lineup. What are we doing here? Blah, 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 blah. But man, did they put together a hell of a game. Justin Turner came through, 4 RBIs on the day, a triple short of the cycle. I don't know if Justin Turner's going to hit a triple at his age right now, but that would have been great to see. Big 2-run home run from Davis Schneider, who had a really bad spring. Great to see him turn around. And it was cool to see Clement sort of got on base in front of him. He knocked him in, and they kind of had a little celebration. I know those guys are roommates, so they're probably good buddies. And, it's just great to see them celebrating together. And just the whole team seemed to be having fun. Just some of the shots watching it on the broadcast of the dugout and everything just was great to see.
Also showing up today, Dustin, Kevin Gosman. When we last recorded, we really didn't know if he was going to start this game, what was going to happen. And he started this game and he pitched quite well. 4.1 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 run, 0 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So Kevin Gosman, although he is not stretched out because of his abbreviated spring, hasn't really missed a beat since his first start in the last spring training game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was a little worried about what we'd see here from Gaz today, having one start in spring and the injury and everything being shortened. Having your second start of the season be in a true game against a pretty tough team in their park. I mean, it's a tall order, but if anyone can do it, it's Kevin Gosman, and he looked good today. He wasn't peak Gosman, but 1 earned run and 6 strikeouts. Gave up 1 home run. I think that's more than you can ask from Kevin on any given day. Obviously you'd like to see him go a little bit deeper than I think he had 4 innings and an out in the fifth, but he was approaching a pretty high pitch count at that point, and you don't want to see him go too hard too fast.
Good to get the win, get the split down in the Trop. Now, Dustin, we had 2 games where we scored a lot of runs, 2 games where we didn't score many runs. I still, even though there were 3 runs combined between game 2 and 3. I think most players had an okay series. Like there was not even there's not really any players that I can see going through their stat lines that really really jumped out to me, saying like this guy had a bad series or they went hitless. Like even your bold prediction, Mr. IKF, although believe he went hitless the first 2 games. He had 3 hits in this series. So like pretty much everyone did a little something. Dalton Varsho, a couple runs, 2 hits, 3 walks. I'm not gonna, given what happened last year, I'm not going to, uh, proclaim that the right change was made and the approaches are better because May was quite disappointing last year. But across the board, it does seem like I don't things are improved at least. And while it doesn't always work out and you're not able to always cluster hits together, it 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 just seems like there is something to build on.
Absolutely. I think that 2 of 2 from the Trop um, is going to be good no matter what time of the season is. Um, and yeah, it's still early. I mean, we all say it's early, but every game counts, and grabbing 2 wins away is you know good against such a tough team. A division rival, all that. So yeah, I think I'm happy to go 2 for 2 here. I think, or 2 and 2. I think that this road trip overall, I think it's going to end up being 10 games. So there's 3 games in Houston next, and then New York after that. If they could come back 5-5, I'd be, that'd be acceptable. And then let's see where we go um, from there.
And actually, I'm just looking through the stats for this series. You know, I'm gonna say Kevin Kiermaier not looking so good. He had one hit, one RBI, and one walk. Other than that, everybody kind of got going a little bit, got the wheels turning. Alejandro Kirk, 2 hits, 4 RBIs, another walk. Vladdy, you touched on the amount of walks that Vladdy is taking. He has the team high of 5 right now, and his OPS is over 1,000. Springer, you know what, we didn't touch on Springer in depth. I thought Springer, he seems to have had a strong start. You know, 2 home runs in the first 2 games, uh, showing that power. Another hit today. Uh, I don't know. I was looking for some, I guess, I was looking for some positivity from Dustin, but I'm looking at the stats here, and to be honest, I think everybody's, you know, there's not really any players getting off to any really um, bad starts or anything like that. I think we're okay going into this next series against Houston.
Yeah, there's a lot to be optimistic about right now. I think the offense looks strong. I mean, if you added up the wins and divided by four, I think we're close to that 5 wins per game that we talked about needing to be at. So I'm happy. I'm not ecstatic. It would have been better, obviously, to take three of four from Tampa here, but you know it could have been worse. Let's say that.
Also, I wanted to ask you, given his performance the last couple games, is Ernie Clement going to become an everyday player?
Phew. He keeps it up like this, yeah. Obviously, I think uh, this team's from the front office down to the last man on the field. They want to win. They're doing everything to win, and I have no doubt that if Ernie Clements keeps playing defense like he's playing, hitting like he's hitting, he's gonna earn a spot on the roster. And if that's at the expense of IKF or anybody else, that's just fine by me. He seems like he's going to have a little bit of a breakout this year. I think if there's anybody on this team that's going to break out, it's going to be Erning Clement.
Well, and that's actually who I'm wondering is IKF. If IKF struggles offensively and, you know, he's doesn't have a track record of being a great offensive player, I'm wondering if his position at third base is under threat if Ernie Clement keeps hitting, because at a certain point, you know, if a guy's playing well enough, like you kind of got to get him in the lineup, just like Davis Schneider last year in August. Like you just kind of had to find a way to get him in there because he was just playing so well.
Yeah, and I think they will. I mean, we've already seen that here. I know he's in because Bo had his neck thing, but uh, you know, he's the first go-to, right? They probably could have done something else um, to fill those spots. Biggio was on the field, and you know, I don't know. I think they're going to play him when they can, however they can, and I think that's part of the reason why you know the the team is built the way it is to be able to play the hot hand and to get guys into different positions to make sure that the lineup is as you know is built to score the most runs that they can on any given day.
Dustin, I think that's all the time we have. 4 game series in the books. Jays roll into Houston, and we'll be back to talk about the Houston series as well as the New York series.